Or what if somebody wants a number that?
Are we waiting for Liz
Are we
and
on?
Elle to be back?
Okay.
Okay, and we will call the Economic Development Tourism Committee to order, and we have the published agenda. I would like to make an addition to that, and at the front, I want to review the minutes of the last meeting, and then I want a real quick just informative thing on our centers for the comp plan.
Are those two separate items?
They're two separate items, and we'll start with the minutes. I don't know if everyone has their minutes with them.
I don't think I do.
I don't have.
We get
They're
them in
not
our
in the
inbox. Huey, do you also email them to us?
I didn't know.
I think they
to
just
do
go on
that.
the. Yeah. I just send them to Janine, and I think she distributes them.
Yeah, we get a paper copy.
Yeah, I don't think our department handles that. Or at least I wasn't aware of that, so I apologize.
So,
Okay, well, no, I was just gonna say, when we come down and under the discussion of the Marina Park overlook covering, it said Ashby stated council members received an email about city council not cooperating, and that is not what I stated. I was approached by a port commissioner,
Okay.
and then I discussed it. I had a discussion with the second port commissioner, and he affirmed what the original port commissioner asked me. So I just wanted that clarified. The port did not send us an email. That was an in-person conversation.
I think we also thought you were referring to the Roger Gay email, and Mark may have jumped on the band because we got that.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No, that was that.
And I also had some concerns about the minutes, and I talked to Nick because I like that they attribute almost quotes to people, but I felt that some of the quotes attributed to me were not completely accurate as to what I had actually
They
said
said.
in whole.
Okay, and
So-
that may be part of what the concern I had too. On the back page, under the discussion of the Myries property, it indicates that Councilman Jeff Cartwright requested staff to provide council members with a statement. I was the one who made that recommendation, or that request. It was not Jeff, it was I. And then I just felt that whole area, that whole section needed revision, because then it states that Bond stated Code Enforcement Officer Doug Price went down to Myries and to make sure that the facade was secure. Bond stated that the city does not have a dangerous building abatement code, so the city is limited what it was to do. Tim Mathis said that if the whole council desires, they can ask the attorney to provide a white paper. What I remember of that discussion, and that's why we probably do have to go back to the tape, is I don't remember Nick at all saying that there was a problem with your code at that time. I don't remember that part of the dialogue. What I remember was the mayor saying that there was not funds in the budget to produce a white paper, and there was a discussion about that budget issue. That's what I'm remembering. And that's when I said, well, perhaps the attorney already had something authored, as she did for traffic impact fees. So I don't think that part of the minutes is reflective of what that discussion was. So I would like that to be revisited.
And I'd like to follow up on that real quickly. During the council presentations of subcommittee, I did reference, I believe, that the minutes were provided to the council at that they were part of our packet, and my notes were different from the minutes. And so I'm going to request that before minutes are released, the minutes get reviewed by the chair of the subcommittee.
You know, we are doing summary minutes, we're not doing verbatim minutes.
I understand.
That's good.
Well,
And we have a tape where we,
Yeah.
if there's
Yeah,
any
right,
question,
right.
that's
Yeah,
verbatim.
they're not expected to be a transcript, right?
No, they're not
This is
expected.
not a transcript.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
no.
So it isn't going to be exactly what you said, parentheses.
That's
everything.
okay, it's just that in the
It's-
case where it quoted me, I felt I was
That's the
being quoted
difference
out
between
of
verbatim
context.
minutes and.
So that's part of what I think we're gonna streamline, is that they're
I
gonna be
think what we need
less.
to do at the end is say,
Yeah.
of course, for the exact words, look at the
Yeah,
tape. You know,
yeah.
here the
No,
It's
I
not a
just, I
transcript.
just want it reflected that I was the one who had asked for the white paper.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that we get the
That
the
detail.
chairs look at the minutes to have it be verbatim, but I think where there's material misrepresentation or accidental quotes of who said what,
Right.
that's material, and I think that should be addressed.
So that was what I wanted to add regarding minutes. And the other thing, before we get into the meat of our agenda, is that at the KRCC Transpol meeting last Friday, we had a presentation from PSRC transportation officials regarding the criteria for the next funding cycle. And one of the bullet points was that the transportation funds, one of the bullet points, and there were several, support centers. Those are regional centers, and there's also local centers. And I wanted to make sure that we were all aware that we need whatever our comprehensive plan says with centers, I want to make sure that we have that in alignment with the criteria that we're going to need for transportation funding. And I just wanted to bring that out, and I suspect KRCC is going to be updating their centers list. And so we want to make sure that our centers are good to go.
When you say criteria, you're talking about PSRC criteria or grant criteria?
I'm talking about grant criteria, yes. And I don't know what type of criteria, honestly, PSRC has for local centers. I know they have criteria for regional centers. I don't know what their expectation is for local centers. And we definitely have spent a lot of time on centers. And part of that work was for transportation funding. So we need to make sure that we've checked the boxes that they're going to want checked.
And my recollection, because I went through this process at Pierce County, was that at the countywide level, the PCRC,
Okay.
sorry, Pierce County Regional Council had a discussion about this and sent it to the staff level because they realized that different cities had different criteria for local centers, and some cities were adopting basically their entire city was a local center so that they could get all the projects in the city. And they said,
Right.
no, that's not the intent of the local centers criteria. And so they developed basically a list of criteria that in order to be designated a local center, you had to have A, B, C, D, and E. And then the countywide body would actually review the proposed list and adopt and approve the regional list of local centers, which would be each city having, Bremerton currently has 10, Port Orchard currently has 3. And that's why we amended our plan, was we wanted to recognize that we wanted to take this approach to planning, but we
Correct.
haven't actually done the planning. And so I think in Pierce County, one of the criteria that was considered was that you had to have a sub-area plan for every center before it could be on the list. And so we don't have any criteria like that yet.
So what we perhaps need to find out is if KRCC has criteria that they
I don't think we do.
require. And so that's something that I will bring up at Transpol then, or at the KRCC level. I just didn't, we have done work on centers, have great intention for our centers, and I didn't want to miss funding opportunities if we were.
Yeah, and that was sort of a preemptive thing that I had recommended, was identifying those because I knew it was coming down the line for transportation funding, and I don't think that we've overstepped our bounds by designating them around the city on our main transportation corridors. But if we had done a whole city approach, or basically carved the entire city into centers so that the entire city was a local center,
Right.
I think that would be frowned upon. And we can refine that
Who
going
did
forward.
that? Was it a really tiny city? It's a
I don't
clever
remember.
idea.
I think Tacoma, there was some discussion because Tacoma had so many of them. I think they had like 35 centers or something, and the other jurisdictions thought it was unfair that Tacoma had 35 different areas of its city that could apply for grants, whereas, University Place had one.
Right.
So that was the discussion that had occurred.
Okay, so I will go back to KRCC and find out what criteria they have for local.
Yeah, and they may not need criteria, they just may need to update the list, and as long as the region agrees that these are our local centers, that
Then
may
we're
be
good,
good.
and that may be what they do, okay. Then we'll get on down with our regular agenda, and that will be, the first one is the Summer Foot Ferry ridership recap.
So I provided the ridership count. We got the invoices in, I think, a couple weeks ago. It's, some days it was up from last year, some days it was down from last year. So it's my understanding that the Port of Bremerton, the City of Bremerton, some council members from both the City of Port Orchard and the City of Bremerton will be attending that meeting, and I think the meeting is being held on Monday, the 19th.
And that's 10 o'clock, isn't it?
I don't recall, but I think that meeting notices have been sent out to everybody.
And it's here.
Yes.
Okay, so when we go to that meeting, I just wanted this committee to review this a little bit to see if we had any particular thoughts on what goes ahead. You will see the total ridership is down 426 from the year before, and most of that was down on Labor Day Sunday and Labor Day Monday. You will see that Labor Day Sunday was down almost 1,000 riders.
Yeah, it
Pretty
was-
nasty weather, wasn't it? If I
No, it
recall?
wasn't a bad day at all.
Sunday was.
It was a day
no,
that tasted-
Saturday was.
Saturday was?
I know Saturday was, I don't know
It
what
was-
Sunday and Monday was.
It was the day of the Taste of Port Orchard.
Okay.
And it was not the stellar weather that we had had in previous years, but it was by no means bad.
Okay.
And there's even a difference of almost 400 on Monday, Labor Day Monday. My question, or the brief analysis I've done on this, is on Sundays, our non-holiday Sundays, we average about 150 riders. And some Sundays, we've had as many as 200, 181, and some as low as 97. But I wanted to make sure, or find out from the field of this committee, if you are still supportive of the city recommending the Sunday 10 to 6 ridership.
I'm supportive of the Sunday and holidays and festival days. I'm still not supportive of the late evening.
Right,
or
what,
Saturday.
what we'll find is, the Saturdays, we're averaging 9 riders on Saturday
But that's
evenings.
per hour. What's the per hour for Sundays?
Well,
as
that's
well?
just,
Is that
right,
hour
because
and a half on
it's just
Saturday?
1 hour.
Okay.
It's just 1 hour on Saturday, but we have had Saturdays, we had a total of, where did I write that? We had a total of, how many people on Saturdays? It was a low number, like only 97.
It was low,
On
but it's also
Saturday.
for, and I appreciate that, I'm not arguing that.
Right.
What I want for the comparison is what is the per hour on Saturday and the
yeah,
per hour
that's-
on Sunday?
Well,
Because
it's
that's-
9 per hour on Saturday, and on Sunday, we're there
Yes, I'm sorry.
11,
Is it
12,
8
11,
hours?
12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. So 8
Right, it would be-
into 150,
About 20.
yeah, we're close to
Okay.
20 an hour. So the question is, does this committee want us to support or not support the hour on Saturday?
shorter one.
Or do you have any other hours you want to change?
I think you need to find out how Bremerton feels about it. I've always felt that the late evenings could be a growth opportunity. And I would admit that, yes, it may be low now, but I think if you do it, maybe you don't do it at all, or you do it till 10. I mean, I'm thinking if we could encourage the restaurant, people here go to Anthony's, the Hampton Inns come over to our restaurants. If we could get that synergy, I think it could be working more successfully. But if we're only going to do an hour and it's not really enough for anyone to get much done, then maybe not. But I would be interested in seeing, what does the Bremerton side feel? How
heard
has that?
I did hear that City of Bremerton is deciding, is possibly, and we'll know more, I guess, Monday, but it's my understanding that they probably will be going away with their Sunday market, their farmer's market. So I don't know if they're gonna transfer it to a different day, so that may have an impact on the.
On whether they want to support Sundays.
Right, so, yeah, and I went ahead and applied for $6,500 for lodging tax funds for the Foot Ferry, because I did do a total, and the invoices for the city of Port Orchard came to a little over $6,300. So I just put in $6,500 with, I think it was $2,500 in advertising costs, so.
Has the LTAC committee met, and do we know what their recommendation is?
Yes, and
forgot what it was.
I'm preparing the minutes, and it'll go before council next week's work study session for the recommendations.
Okay, so do we have the contract? Well, that's a side note, because I know council also had requested that the contract be complete before we address distributions.
The Foot Ferry?
No, not for the Foot Ferry, but
Oh.
just for,
Yeah, that's still under council review, or legal
Okay.
review.
I think the service of it, they recommended full funding, but the marketing, it was less than what was asked for, if I remember
Correct, that's what I
correctly.
recall
Okay.
too.
okay.
Yeah, and I did take a picture.
I just don't have the exact dollars.
Yeah, I did take a
Okay.
picture.
So, just in general, what type of clients, customers, citizens are we trying to attract on a Sunday between 10 and 6 versus a Friday night for an extra hour? Would be my overall
Saturday.
question, or Saturday night for an extra hour. Where are they coming from and where are they going to?
Do we even know that?
How that Saturday hour came in last year
Bremerton wanted it.
is Bremerton used to have what they call Rock the Dock.
Right.
And it was Friday night, and they moved that to Saturday night. And they felt the extra hour was important for transporting people to and from Port Orchard for their Rock the Dock and between the marinas. And so we were supportive of that to help Bremerton, which is how that got in there.
And I know from talking to some folks that have been working down on the boardwalk, they're putting up, looks like Wi-Fi dishes, and they've been looking at the vacant yacht sales place as a green room to support more bands. They were looking at putting a permanent band structure. You know, they really wanted it. Now, that was earlier in the summer, that they were really gonna make this boardwalk area,
More vibrant.
you know, more of a go-to destination place, more nights, at least through the summer. I don't know the status of that. Perhaps somebody can reach out to them, but I was just trying to figure out who we're trying to attract and where they're gonna go, and what businesses here we're trying to attract them to.
Well, that was Port Orchard's position last year, is our businesses are closed on Saturday night at that time. So we were not, there was no advantage to Port Orchard
Okay.
but it was important for us to support our partner. And the Sunday service is important to our merchants.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with this.
okay. And I don't
The normal
know,
business hours, whether it's Monday through Friday or Saturday or Sunday.
okay.
Thank you.
And then we have the public event toolkit.
I'd like to say, I really like how this is turned out. Good work.
And Rhiannon worked on this, and she was able to move quicker than we anticipated, and so this is what we've come up with.
I didn't go over it with an absolute fine-tooth comb, but I really like the feel and all the links, and this is of course available online as well, so they can just.
Not yet,
But it will be. I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I really liked it. It's coming along.
And I too had not had an opportunity to read it completely, but I was very pleased with the look and feel of it. Yeah.
So the thought was that probably just once a year we'll update the restaurants, probably the first part of the year we'll update mainly just the vendors part of it.
That was one of my questions, is a lot of vendors and restaurants
we'll just do
listed
it
here.
once a
and you have to
year.
do- Okay.
Yeah. And
Well,
then
hopefully they can do it more frequently if it's just online.
it just depends on staff workload. Yeah, because restaurants change all the time, and not all the time, but probably more than, I mean, we'd have to monitor it weekly or monthly.
Then that would.
And I don't know that that's wise use of staff's time, depending on what other things are going
Well, we
on.
just don't have that worked into your work schedule.
Correct. And so with that,
Can they fill out these applications online?
it's a writable version, and then they can just email it to us. So I did put in a public event application, I did put in a lodging tax request application for a public event coordinator. And the thought of this, it was presented to the committee, and the thought was just a part-time person to continue this efforts, to work with the, employees to work with other local organizations and event organizers to assist in directing them to forms and other agencies and local businesses that can assist with them in putting on events in the city. They would also update the city's website on a regular basis, press releases, social media updates for the city's businesses, to better inform the public of what's happening at City Hall. They would better market the Foot Ferry summer schedule, assist with the Festival of Chimes and Lights event planning, and then this person would also work with Visit Kitsap and other chamber of commerce around the area to promote events happening within the jurisdiction. And then the goal of this position is to better coordinate events year-round to help acquire more events during the shoulder season to increase lodging tax dollars. So it was just an application. I didn't know, based on what we talked about a year ago, that this would be the first step is to get the toolkit. The second step would to have somebody continue the efforts that was done in reaching out to the nonprofits, the chambers, the Visit Kitsap to promote not only the events but city venues to get more events on the shoulder season. So that's what that was for. Again, I did put in a request to the lodging tax, and then I also put it in as a supplemental part of my budget as a part-time employee. So that's just kind of what I consider a phase 2
There was
of
the
this.
attempt to get it staffed. They did not support it watching the committee.
But I think this is kind of what we envisioned. The one thing, and again, I apologize, Brandy, I haven't read this completely, but did we put in here for the people seeking events to know that they can list their event with Visit Kitsap?
I
And
think
that they
there's a
can-
reach out to Visit Kitsap. I think we have, it says, other marketing, you see, I think it said other marketing, advertising contacts. Visit
Okay.
Kitsap is listed there.
Okay, because I know the Chamber and POBSA will push all that stuff out too.
Yeah, we added
And
the
so-
Sun, the Independent, Visit Kitsap, and Macaroni Kids. Page
Okay.
10.
Okay,
Chamber visit, yep.
okay.
How should we get feedback to you? For example, would it be possible to get hours by the restrooms? You know,
Hours, like
when
open
they're
hours.
open, dawn to dusk or like 10 to 6. If we can find that out. Also, could we consider putting the restaurant for this, the restroom for the Central Market on the map? I know that gets into like,
Well, the problem is if you
It's
list
private
one,
versus
it's a
public. Yeah.
private one. And we don't want to advertise that there's,
See,
a
some
private
pri-
restroom.
some private businesses won't allow
well,
public
right,
use
and we
of
would, I wouldn't
restrooms.
put
Some
those.
do and some
right,
don't, and
but
we'd
the
have to
Central
go
Market
around.
is so open. And at one time, I
I
mean,
would-
and if you look at the map too, it's like the people have to walk between 1 and 2 to go. It would be nice if there's something more in the middle.
I mean, we could reach out to them to ask them if we can include them on the map. I mean,
Okay.
I would prefer that than just put it on there, just because
Right,
they
if you
will
could-
incur
If you
increased
could,
costs for
if you
people
could
using
check with them and see if they
restrooms.
would be willing to have themselves listed as a bathroom on the map.
Yeah, and you guys can send your comments, feedback, we welcome that. You can send it
Yeah.
to
Do
me.
you need
and
by a
then-
certain date or?
I mean, our goal is to put it up by the end of the year, so,
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
Fred, if we went, are you saying restaurant hours? Is that what you?
restroom.
Restrooms.
Oh, rest-
I'm sorry, yeah, no, not restaurant hours, just the restrooms, like
Well,
page 9.
restrooms are, that's more manageable, but then on the other hand,
Yeah.
I periodically go down there and check that restroom down the marina, or observation deck, and the other day it was locked, and then the
Well-
last time I went during the weekend, it was
Yeah.
open, so.
Yeah.
They
Well-
try to
There may
do
not
it, the
be
staff
specific
person tries
hours.
to open it and close it, but I'd hate to put times and then have it not be open. and
Okay,
we're gonna
well, I
get
was thinking
calls.
for, and that may be another issue, because I've emailed Kathy Garcia at the Port of Bremerton, because it seems like their, like number 3 is always locked. And I've heard complaints from people saying that, she would go by and open it herself if she could get the key, and I thought, well,
There isn't a,
I wish they could open and lock remotely.
which restroom is that?
The waterfront boat launch.
See, that's supposed
Oh,
to have
that
time
one.
locks on it, but I don't know, I haven't been down and checked that one.
It looks like it could be high-tech, and those are possibly the most visible and the nicest bathrooms. I mean, the one by the Marina Park are okay. But those, especially when we had the safety, the out night, or whatever that was called.
Ladies' Night Out?
They did.
No, not the
Oh, the
safety one.
national
The National
thing.
Night Out. They were locked
They were
at
locked, I
night.
remember that, yeah.
So, and they weren't supposed to be, but it was just like, we had a crowd of people and no place to use the bathroom.
Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, do you want to put City Hall that the bathrooms are
We're-
open during the day?
We're desperately in need of a couple of public restrooms downtown.
Yeah.
In the middle here. I don't know what we can do.
If,
Well,
if you
there's
could
one-
reach out to Central Market and see if they're, or Central Dock, or something, the public market, whatever it's called. It would make a friendlier map, at least.
Library has bathrooms. And it's a public
That's true.
facility
Yeah,
On this,
versus a private
Yeah.
restaurant.
yeah, the library would be good too.
on this map that says restrooms, just, you've got Port Orchard Marina in green at the public market.
Oh, okay, I'll find out why. I'm not sure why.
But other than that, job well done. That's consistent on all of those, that it must have something to do with
The map.
the map, yeah. But yeah, no, job well done.
I like it.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I'll pass it on to Rhiannon.
Yeah, let her know. Good job. So, our next one is the public events ordinance. And I know that Brandy sent us a list of questions that she needed discussion on. But before we went down her list of questions, I would like to review the ordinance to make sure we all understand what the ordinance is. So I had several questions on the ordinance. It starts with our whereases, and the second whereas says, whereas it has been determined that the city should support and endorse special events on city-owned right-of-ways and parks when such events are determined to benefit the community. So we've got that. We've said that we're going to support special events on city-owned right-of-ways and parks. So we've said that. And then we go to the purpose and intent. And we've crossed out A, and we've got a new A, and it says that the intent of this chapter is to allow organizations to sponsor special events on public thoroughfares and to provide guidelines that protect the public's health, safety, and welfare. I think we need to be consistent with our language. And this is either public thoroughfares or it's city-owned right-of-ways and parks. And we come down again under definitions and under special events, it means any activity proposed to occur on public property that affects the public's ordinary use of public streets, parks, right-of-ways, and/or sidewalks. And then we've defined street or streets means any public roadway, highway, sidewalk, or portions thereof in the city dedicated to public use. So I want us to be consistent in what we're saying.
So scratch public thoroughfares.
Yeah, the public thoroughfares need to be replaced with our right-of-ways and parks. And we've defined streets. Do we need to define right-of-ways? I don't know. Because we refer to right-of-ways.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
You're saying you want streets, parks, sidewalks taken out?
No, I'm saying that
Right-of-way
we need to be consistent. And if we're gonna refer to streets, and then you go through here and it'll say streets and sidewalks, or under the definition, they're all inclusive. And we talk about parks, we don't define parks. I don't know if parks needs to be defined or not.
So I have a question.
Uh-huh.
What if somebody wanted to close down a street to have a wedding reception, that would fall under this?
Yes.
Okay. And 7 homeowners decide they want to close, have a block party, that would be under this?
Technically, yes.
So technically speaking, when neighborhoods decide or wish to close off a cul-de-sac, they put their own barricades up and they have their own 4th of July block party down there. Technically, they're supposed to have a permit to do that.
And insurance requirements, yeah.
It also says, it talks about runs, and the run, they have to have 10 or more persons using, the public street or sidewalk. I mean, to me, we say public street or sidewalk there, when it just, is that where we use the right-of-way? We need to be consistent. When we come over to the next page, and,
Sorry, I would like to add block parties in there.
okay,
Special events, I guess, would be the best place for that definition.
but we need a definition for block party.
Yeah.
Okay.
Party on the block.
Thank you.
Or cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
So you want to add right-of-way to the terms. And you're wondering if we need to add parks, like city-owned parks as opposed to top lots?
Yeah, correct.
So add parks.
We need to define parks because we are, that's the intent of what we're doing in our whereases. So. When we come over to the permits required, it says, no person, firm, company, nonprofits, or corporation shall run, manage, operate, or conduct any special event without having applied for and received a special event permit in advance of such special event as required by this chapter by the city clerk or designee. I don't think that makes sense. As required by this chapter by the city clerk.
Oh, I think required by this chapter, I think the second one should have been a red line. Let me see.
It seems a little bit dark.
Yeah, it should say as required by this chapter, period.
Yeah, it didn't make,
And I think before I had that,
and so,
the clerk, it does,
Yeah.
just required by the chapter.
we go down into section 2 under there, and it said there shall be an administrative application fee of $25 to hold a special event at the locations described in section 5.904. The application fee for applications to amend the map or maps of approved special event locations shall be $500. So this brings up to me, and probably need to go back into definitions again too, is this map that we talked to, and there's a special event location map. How often is that updated? And where's it located? It says here that it's shall be on file at the clerk's office. Well, I think it should probably be online. And how often are they updated? And if we're going to charge someone $500 to add a location on there, we should have some procedure of reviewing that regularly. So if they want to do something, they have an idea in October that they want to do something somewhere, and we review that, annually every December, we could add it and not have to charge them their $500. It just
think
seems
this part-
pretty onerous to me.
It is, and I think this part came from a few months, when we talked about locations, and originally I had a list of the locations, and it came back and it said, okay, well, I think we can just do a map of the parks, and so we had a map, and then that map was just gonna be on file, and I think the $500 consistent with probably the planning department's appeal process, I'm not quite sure, but I think that's probably where that came into play. But after reading this and looking at a map, I don't know that and just thinking out loud here, I don't think it makes sense to have a map, because I think that, and that's kind of where I put in my comments, is that to hold an event could be
It could be in Jeff's neighborhood.
right, and so if it's not on the map, then you're constantly updating that map, and I don't think that's the point of this. I think the point
Right.
is, in my mind, is that people are seeking permission to hold a gathering more than 10 people, 50 people, whatever it is defined, to hold an event, to alert the public, or excuse me, to alert the other citizens, to alert code enforcement, law enforcement, fire department that this is happening, so that they can, be aware. So in my mind, it's like, okay, it didn't make sense to have a map, but that was the original direction of the committee, so I threw it in there, and then I thought, well, let me put my comments in here that I sent you separately to say, hey, if somebody wants to hold an event out in a cul-de-sac, and the police department, the fire department, Public Works, DCD's already looked at it and said, yeah, it's safe, they gave us a map, there's, fire lanes clearly defined, they know their rules, it's outlined in the conditions. What would be outside of staff's direction that the council or the city would not want to hold it? Like they can't have liquor because that's,
Well,
it's a
the
state
council-
law that they can't have liquor outside of, whatever those rules are.
Right.
But the council gets to approve it.
Correct.
So they can say, no, we don't want this because of whatever those things are.
Right, but when I was talking to the attorney, and she's gonna come, so she said that you can, if you limit yourself in the map, then you're always gonna be updating it. And then if you deny it, you have to give reasons as to why it's denied. And so when they appeal it, so we would deny it, staff would internally review it and say, oh, okay, we're gonna deny it because it's unsafe, whatever, the chief came by, and, whatever the fire department or whatever says, then staff would deny it. And if they would come back and say, okay, staff didn't deny it, they would appeal to the council, and the council says, hey, staff denied it because of this is what I'm doing, then the council can override that decision. But they have to override it based on a criteria, and so that's what we're trying to define.
That's what that.
I know, it's kind of,
So why don't we just take that whole sentence out of there, throw it out?
And again, I haven't come through this, and I apologize. I have a question on, that's fine. Council doesn't need to look at everyone and make a decision. I think the appeal is fine, as long as there's decent checks and balances. And we heard, was it the swim deck? What was that issue? My concern is when these events happen, what's the threshold for adjacent property owners? If one of them says no, does the event get canceled?
well, that's the council decision.
So, but if we put this to the city to administer the application, and I'm assuming that notification of the adjacent or affected property owners is a requirement that has to be met before approval. You must prove that you've contacted everybody. You must prove that if they have an issue, you've mitigated that or whatever. That's my biggest concern, because I don't want us to go through another swim deck thing without having those checks and balances of adjacent and affected property owners.
And that's one of my questions is, what are the requirements the council wants to hold for a public notice of an event? Are you seeking approval or noticing? And then Bremerton, out of all the applications, sample applications that I reviewed, and a handful of the cities that I reviewed have only a handful of the cities have codified this process. And when they codified it, it just says you have to have an application and here's the fee. That's it. And then everybody else has a big manual on how to internally process it. So, you know, and only Bremerton, and out of all those applications, only Bremerton's on its application states that you may be required to submit a copy of the letter notice that will be used to notify the businesses and residents who will be affected by closures. So only by closures, and you may. So, and that's, you know, my I don't know what the council wants. Do you want me? I mean, we can notice it. I mean, we can put an ad in the paper. We can notice it, but it's going to be hard to notice it on a run because you have so many.
Let's go ahead and finish this, and then let's get into her questions.
So the
the
map,
map
I
is-
think it, in my opinion, I think it'd be easier if you just don't have a map, and that, you know, based on,
And then what we're doing is city-owned right-of-ways and parks.
correct.
That's our definition, and that's what needs to be consistent
Correct.
through here. Then, then we go on, we talk about a lot of things. Under the application, we talk about,
Page 4.
yeah, we talk about, we need name, phone number, address, we need date, location, we've got some things on here. I would like to see us require the application be signed by an officer or someone with legal responsibility for whatever the organization is. And not just the chair of the committee, but, you know, somebody that is legally accountable to the organization, either as an officer or.
Didn't we have quite a upheaval at one time because of that, because asking for legal authority? Oh, no, that was something else, that was permitting or something, or a contract, okay.
Contract, yeah.
Yeah, it was a contract.
Okay, I can make sure that's in there.
Okay, when we get down, and now, I don't want to, when we get down on page 5, and under L, I thought this needed to be reworded. It said, should there be alcoholic beverages being served on city property, you must provide a permit approved by the State Liquor Control Board. I felt that that needed to be reworded in that it's not you must provide a permit, but a permit by, I didn't like the idea of you must. It, you know,
You need?
It's a banquet permit is required.
a banquet permit is required,
That's the
whatever.
permit we're talking about, right? For
Yeah. It's a special occasions permit.
that? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That board has also changed their name.
Oh, yeah. It's now
It's the
Cannabis and
liquor and
alcohol.
cannabis. now,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
But,
I'll make it shorter and clearer.
Yeah, it just, it was a little more conversational than the rest of the document.
Okay.
And then when we get down under special event approval, legacy events,
And, yeah. So that one, let me see. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
well, what my concern is that we're not talking about events. We have applications for special events shall be processed on a first-come, first-served basis with the following exceptions for legacy events. And then it's Fathoms of Fun. That's an organization, that is in fact not an event. And if we wanted to call out perhaps the 4th of July fireworks or their parade the end of June, that would be appropriate.
So you need their full name, like Fathoms of Fun Parade.
Right, it's
Okay.
not, the
I think it
organization,
started it, but yeah, it's the event, not the.
Yeah, and it's the festival of
I started it, because that's not all of them.
and it's the and right, and we have to, and my comment on that also is, the Mustangs have, held their
Oh, the
thing
cruise.
on the 25th, or the third Saturday or Sunday of July for 25 years. I think they're as legacy as anyone else, and so is the cruise. So I think that needs to be reworked.
And legal counsel did have some concern on this section, which I think shared Cartwright's concerns at the last meeting, is that she didn't understand why some are having special privileges to not
Pay for the police.
correct. And she goes, you should be consistent with, if they're gonna be charged for police and public works overtime, everybody should apply or nobody at all, because you're creating that, the favoritism, and
Correct.
it's not. So the question here is, when this ordinance becomes in effect, do we want to repeal the resolution that states that they're no longer being grandfathered? And then, so you would just have, it's the first come, first served, and there basically is no legacy.
I'm not in favor of that.
Yeah, I have no problem with the legacy. I think we need to be careful. And legacy for dates is separate from being grandfathered in for expenses of overtime. I see those as two separate issues.
Okay, so legacy for dates are
And I
okay.
also think
Okay.
the legacy for dates should have a time limit on it. I think, because most of the events are summer events, I think if they're going to be legacy and use their standard dates, that they need to let us know that, like within the first quarter, so that if you're gonna have the parade, let us know the parade's on, we've got it on our calendar. Whatever they're doing, so that someone doesn't apply and they think they're good, and then, or perhaps chooses a different weekend, and then an event doesn't hold.
So, are we open January 1st for people to reserve dates?
We have the.
Okay, so that it
there's
doesn't
a
happen
handful
before
that
that.
does it right
Okay.
at the beginning of January, so
Yeah.
they can get their marketing.
Yeah. Because who was talking about people lining up to get?
Oh, that's for the banners, I have done that.
Yeah.
I have been done
We can make
that.
a
So
lot
we
of
need to
money.
rework that.
So you're okay with legacy dates, and then I'll word it in here that should the following, so I'll list the events and the dates, like the first Saturday or blah, 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 okay. And then I'll put a noticing, must notice, the first quarter or whatever, okay, so I can do that,
And
okay.
we're probably gonna need to continue their discussion on the fees and
Mhm.
overtime for cops and things like that, because
Right.
that's, I think, still gonna need a little work and discussion.
Yeah.
That's not as easy as this.
It's not, no, it's not.
But it should also be clear that they need to tell us what the date is. It's not, they can't figure their grandfathered and they don't have to do anything. I think what Beck's suggesting, we want them to tell us the dates, even though we have sort of made a spot for them.
Yeah, I think most of them already have, they're consistent, always the third, like the cruise is always a certain day, same with the
Okay.
Mustang, and I know that Fathoms has gone back and forth on a couple of their events, but, I think everybody else is consistent, so, okay.
And I know we're gonna go back and talk about this, but I just wanted to explain my thought process for
Okay.
these events and the cost of overtime and stuff. And I understand the city covers a lot of that for some of these historical events, and those events, I think that could be justified because those events are bringing tourism dollars into the city. But if we want to expand, which is how we started with this whole thing, it's expanding the festival season
Correct.
throughout the whole year, and there's more opportunities to bring more tourism dollars in. Hitting a startup, if you will, with this overtime fee could harm them in such that they're not going to continue on year after year after year. So that's just where I'm coming from on that thought process. Not that I'm sold on it one way or the other, so we can drop it and have that discussion later. But
And there was a lodging tax application submitted for this year for Public Works and Police overtime. And I did get a cost analysis from the Finance Department, and in 2014, there was almost $20,000 of police and public works overtime spent on preparing and attending public events.
Is that all, or is that just the legacy events?
That's all that
The city paid for
that
it.
does not get, all that the city pays for. There's a handful that pay
Nice.
directly, like the Jingle Bell Run and the Cruise Car Wash, or the Cruise, those two do not. And the Econ Do It Marathon, those are not included in those numbers because they pay directly, but the other ones is for all the other events.
Then on page 6, we come down, the revocation of permit. Special permits may be revoked by, and it's blank. So we
Oh.
probably need to know.
Yeah, I had to double check who was gonna be, and it would be revoked by the issuing department, which would be myself, the city clerk.
My city clerk.
But only on the criteria below.